Howdy folks, it's Crestmore from the Infinity Wars team again. We are going to take you through our second recording of a draft pick. So right now we're in the first commanded choices. We have Yuan Shi, Sage of Ferocity, Spawn, Fierce Companion, Reader, Mistress of Shadow, and Phalanx Commander. So with Yuan Shi, he can actually be a very powerful commander because he's got an ability pay 4, exhaust all characters, exhaust Yuan Shi, and then all characters in play basically take 4 damage. So it's extremely effective at taking out large amounts of small drops. So when you're playing against someone like Sleepers or someone who's playing an FD deck, it's a great card to have at your disposal. Unfortunately, it's only got 6 health, so in order for it to be in play for a long time and effective, it actually needs to be comboed with something like a Deity, Sage of Strength, or you probably want a couple of cards in hand that can buff Yuan Shi's health. So second choice, Spawn, Fierce Companion. It's actually a dual faction card, so Warpath and Exiles. When played in Command in Draft right now, though, it kind of behaves as a factionless card. So great power to cost ratio and health to cost ratio. And I often use this card as well when I'm loading Warpath decks. The third card is an all-time favorite for some of the top Rift runners. So Reader, Mistress of Shadow, having her in command, you can basically be extremely resource efficient. Pay 1 and exhaust Reader, and it creates a 2/2 drop in your support zone. And typically one of the strategies that a lot of players use is that during the early turns within a match, they spin out a lot of Reader's cards, and then mid to late turn, they start playing Reader herself and putting her into play, because any damage done to Reader is first absorbed by the Reader's card tokens that get created. So she's very hard to kill once she gets a lot of Reader's cards into play. Phalanx Commander, another great commander choice actually. So Phalanx Commander is a staple of DoD decks. Very, very good on the defensive. Basically, players would use Phalanx Commander in the first spot in the defense zone because it spreads out any damage that it takes amongst all cards in the defense zone. So, if you have something like Kang Ji also in command, that basically drains morale from your opponent every time one of your cards takes damage, and then you have Phalanx Commander as well, you can actually drain a lot of morale. But the only problem with that combo is Kang Ji also moves Phalanx Commander out of first spot every time he gets hit. But a lot of possibilities with Phalanx Commander, and you can play stuff like Inspiring Soldier, and other cards that drain morale when they're in the battlefield, and create some great morale deck combos using Phalanx Commander. So for me, I like playing Reader, so I'm going to go with her. She's versatile in any number of decks. Okay, in terms of second commanded choices, we've got Luker, Combat Mechanic. We have Agent Cheryl, Last to Leave, Steadfast Protector, and Shrapnel Launcher. So, with your second commanded choices, we need to look at colors as well. So, we basically need to decide what colors we're going to go with in terms of purity, so that when we go to the drafting process itself, what combos can we make with these different color, purity color commanders, and also is it a deck that we're going to be able to play effectively as a player. So Agent Cheryl, Last to Leave, I've never had any luck playing her at all because she becomes very powerful if she's the only character in play. Right? When she is the only character in play, she actually ascends, gains +7/+7 as well as flying. But that also means that all other characters that you have in play need to be dead in order for it to ascend. So, marginal utility. And other players may have more luck playing her, but unfortunately I haven't. So with a Verore commander in first spot, we could actually make some interesting potential combos with Verore and Genesis. So the very famous Tinkerside deck is also a combo between Verore and Genesis, but they're only highly effective if you've got an Aether Acolyte in command as well. So we'd have to be rolling the dice to see if we can either get Aether Acolyte into command or a good number of them in the drafting process in deck. We would also need to bet that we can get a lot of Tinkers in the draw in order for an Aether Acolyte to be effective, in order for a Tinkerside combo to be effective. Shrapnel Launcher is actually not one of my favorites, so basically you gotta sacrifice a artificial character, and it basically does 4 damage to an opponent's character for every sacrificed artificial character, and it also costs 2 to play its ability. The other choice is Steadfast Protector. That would mean going with a Verore DoD deck. I haven't played many decks with Verore and DoD before, so and particularly in draft. Trying to build effective DoD-based decks can be difficult. So single purity DoD is easier to draft pick, but when you get double purity DoD combined with other factions, really it's pot luck, because a lot of stuff comes out that is hard to combo, so at least for me. So I haven't figured out how to combo double DoD purity draft decks properly yet. So I'm going to go with the Lucre on this one. Okay, third commander choice, we have Adaptive Hulk, we have Demon of Solitude, and Legionnaire of Dawn, as well as Drone. So basically lots of choices here. We can actually end up building a single purity Verore GI Warpath deck, Verore GI Exiles, Verore GI FD, or we can go with a double Genesis Verore deck. I'm going to go with a double Genesis Verore deck because mainly for the reason it results in a more predictable set of draft choices down the track. Right, one of the really difficult things with playing 3 single purity commanders in a draft deck, you've got a lot of choices as your draft picks come up. You may get lucky and be able to build an awesome deck, but you may also get flooded with a lot of choices that simply are extremely hard to combo. So, with Rita, it would have been good to build a Verore Exile combo deck as well, but given that we have Lucre in hand as well as Rita, I'm going to go with the Drone and see if we can get some good combos going, either from the double GI side or something along the lines of a Tinkerside combo with lots of Aether Acolytes as well as Tinkers. So let's see how this goes. One of my favorite draft combos actually is not double GI Verore, but double GI Overseers. You can basically build some extremely versatile and strong draft decks. So I think one of my best performing runs, I got 28 wins with that deck, was a double Genesis Overseers. The last run I've got this week was a 30 win run, and that was with an extremely overpowered Genesis sleeper deck. So I basically had Alita Tinkerer in command, Bloodthirsty Dead in second command, and then I had a Splitterbot in third command. So I'll be rendering the video of some of the matches from that deck to show you as well. So you know, that deck was extremely crazy in terms of power. So right into the choices for our first pick. Pretty much singular Verore picks here. So Aether Acolyte, as I mentioned before, if we can get some Tinker drops as well, good combos. But since we don't have Aether Acolyte in command, Tinker combos, Tinker side combos are actually, you know, a lot slower to get into play. So Beast of Burden, decent power to cost ratio. Verore Magic Siphoner, extremely good card, right? Very situational, but you know, if you can actually get, you know, Verore Magic Siphoner is one of those cards that can one-shot kill your opponent, right? When you have a lot of small drop abilities in your hand and you position Verore Magic Siphoner at the right time, and you're able to punch through your enemy, right? Playing Verore Magic Siphoner, you could literally do massive amounts of damage to the enemy fortress in one fell swoop. So, and then the last one is Redestroy, a 1-drop that, when sacrificed, returns from the graveyard to play after 2 turns. So I'm going to ignore that. We're going to go for the Aether Acolyte. Let's see if we can get some Tinker side combos going. Really, it's a choice between Aether Acolyte and Verore Magic Siphoner. Both of these cards seem to appear pretty commonly in Verore deck drafts, so let's see what we get. Okay, we have a Tinker in second choice, so we're going to go with that right away. There's actually some good picks in here, but you know, since we were talking about trying to build Tinker side combos, let's go with the Tinker. Okay, third pick, we have a kinetically overloaded drone, a Tech Knight, and a Bounty Hunter. We can pretty much rule out. You know, they're pretty marginal in terms of cost versus investment, and really, you know, effective against humans, but there are a lot of better choices, particularly in this pick. Verore Channeler is always versatile. It's kind of like a buff that is tied to the character card itself. So when you deploy this card and target another character, that character gets +5/+2, as long as Verore Channeler continues to be in play. So choices. Since we got Lucre in command, I'm going to go with something artificial and small drop. If I'm able to get a lot of artificial small drops in play and then play a Lucre, it can basically turn me into a unstoppable army. Okay, fourth choice, we have Recycle, Neophyte Summoner, Overload, and Word of Command. So both Recycle and Overload are utility cards that, you know, for constructed decks, sometimes they're a staple, but for riff runs, they're really peripheral. So, you know, really, you really use Overload in the fringe scenario that your opponent has a, you know, very powerful artifact or very annoying artifact in play, and you want to use it to take it out. There are better choices here, and the choice that I'm leaning towards is actually Word of Command. Word of Command is an extremely versatile card. So for a cost of 2, you can basically target any of your opponent's characters in play and move them into the desired assault zone or defense zone on a given turn. So combos extremely well. So for example, if your opponent has a small drop that increases their resources, something like the noble, the wealthy noble in play, you can use Word of Command to move it out to the assault or defense zones and kind of wipe them out. You know, if you have something, your opponent plays something powerful like Zuza that hides in a support zone and basically charms your characters, again, you can use Word of Command to move them out into the battlefield, so then you can then target it with a Death Ray or something like that and take it out of commission. So for this draft choice, I'm going to go with a Word of Command. Next set of choices, very similar to the last set. So I'm either going to go with another word of command or a scouting drone. So as I mentioned before, having a lot of small drops that are artificial is actually beneficial for our command zone set, because when we deploy Luca, any artificial characters that are going to be in play is going to get a buff. So let's go with a scouting drone for this one. Word of command, a second pick is tempting, but hopefully it'll come up again in the future. Okay, extremely good choices for the sixth pick. Scouting drone, support drone, hubris of the strong, tormented thrall. So all of these are good choices for this command zone makeup. So tormented thrall would die by a non-sacrificial ability you control. He transforms into a 10/10 tormented brute instead. So typically how it's played is that in the early turns you'd play tormented thrall, and then you'd lightning bolt it yourself and turn it immediately into a 10/10 drop very early on in the game. Support drone as well is extremely versatile. It can buff itself, give itself a +3/+3, or it can buff any other character that it targets for +3/+3. And especially since we have Luca once again in command, small drops like support drone are extremely good. But hubris of the deck, hubris of the strong, is also an extremely strong card for your deck, and it can pretty much basically turn any massive character. Doesn't matter whether they're 10/10, 30/30, or even more. But if they're in play in the battlefield and you target it with hubris of the strong, it turns into a 1/1 character card. So I'm going to choose this one. Support drone turns up pretty frequently, so hopefully I can come back and choose some support drones later down in the drafting process. Okay, seventh choice, Spec Op. Basically a card that most riff runners will pick at all, unless they're forced into a choice to pick it with no other better options. Artificial Swarmer, great when you're building a Swarmer deck in Constructed, but in Draft, it's going to be hard for you to get a lot of Swarmers in hand, especially with our command zone. Picking Swarmers doesn't really add that much. It probably detracts from the deck rather than adds to it. So it's going to be between Battlefield Scavenger and Verore Deck Worshipper. So if you look at the cost to power ratio of Verore Deck Worshipper, it looks really bad. It's a 3 cost for 2/2, but it's mainly a character that you put into play knowing that you're going to be killing a lot of enemies. So for example, because every enemy character you kill, Verore Deck Worshipper gains 2/2. So for example, if I was able to get some overcharged storms or mass staffs into play, right, and I put Verore Deck Worshipper into play before that, and be able to wipe out a large number of characters, suddenly Verore Deck Worshipper can become a very, very big drop. But the danger with putting her into play early though is that she can be nuked and killed fairly easily with Flame Dawn Commandos, Lightning, Firebolts, etc. So I might actually go for the Battlefield Scavenger. So Battlefield Scavenger in Verore decks has the advantage that if they're in the defense drone, at the end of a turn, you draw an additional card. So it's really good to get a lot more cards in hand. And even if he dies, right, even if he gets killed by your opponent, you still get an additional card. So it kind of helps to, if you've got a very good deck but you're getting bad draws, play Battlefield Scavenger and burn through some card draws and hopefully get more utility cards into your hand. Okay, choice number 8, we've got another Hubris of the Strong. Collector, typically I never use at all. Basically it's a 4/4 card at a cost of 3, and it gains another 4/4 for each artifact you control. With draft decks in ref runs, it's very difficult to get a lot of artifacts in hand and into play. So, collectors are good when you're building very specific constructed decks, but otherwise they're very marginal. And then Verore Brute. So the Verore Brute is a unique character. The Verore Brute is a character that gains +4 power every time one of your unique characters takes damage. With our command zone, probably not as useful. But for example, if I was playing a sleeper Verore deck, though, they can be great because I would then basically poison one of my own unique commanders or unique characters. Make it take 1 damage per turn. Disease it with a disease zombie, so it takes 1 damage per turn. And every turn, my unique character takes 1 damage, the Verore Brute would be gaining 4 power. So I think in terms of this deck, we're going to go with another Hubris of the Strong. I skipped over Extended Operation altogether because it's very powerful. Basically, you would target a card that you have in the support zone, and every turn it gives +4/+4, as long as it stays in the support zone. But it's also very slow, and in riff runs, fast decks kind of trump slow decks most of the time. So we're going to go with Hubris of the Strong. I'd pick it if there was no better choices, but Hubris of the Strong is just too good to ignore. Okay, choice number 9. Again, we've got Extended Operation. We have a Genesis Scavenger. It's an okay card, but a little bit marginal. For a cost of 3, you get a 7/7 card in play that can heal your fortress. So if you attack with it, it basically gains materials per se, and then you have to move it back in the support zone and use those materials to repair your fortress. So, it can have some utility, but from a cost-performance ratio, it's okay at best. The other top choice is War Machine. Actually, this is a card that I really like with Genesis decks. It's very versatile, very low cost. So for a cost of 2. And basically, when you have decks with lots of small drops, War Machines are fantastic because you can actually just exhaust a lot of these small drops, and every time you exhaust one character, it becomes 13% complete. Once it's 100% complete, it creates a 16/16 token in your support zone. So, the War Machine can literally become an unending 16/16 token generator if the right conditions come into play. So for lack of a better choice, Boyo, who everybody likes, no, sorry, we're gonna go with War Machine. For the number 10 pick, okay, Assassinate, very versatile, very useful card, but it costs 2 resources. Basically, it decreases your available resources by 2 and sets you back 2 turns, pretty much. So I try not to pick it in draft unless I absolutely need to, because it kind of slows down your deck quite a bit. Ethereal Fusion is a good choice, hard to play right. You basically have to get 2 characters to fight each other in play in order for it to kick off, but if played well and in the right conditions, it can be a one-shot winner as well, right? Take out a massive character from your opponent's side and kind of surprise him and take out those big mobs. and create a new huge mob in your hand. Interdimensional Facebot is a great card to play as long as you can drag the match out long enough in order to put it into play. So it's got a cost of 8, but once it comes into play, you're basically creating new interdimensional Facebots every round for a cost of 6. And then Unmanned Aero Destroyer is a reasonably cost-effective card with flying. So it's one of the few big characters with flying that we can put into play. And again, right, it's an artificial card, so if we deploy Lucre afterwards, it'll get the Lucre buff as well. So this one's a tough choice. So I Unmanned Aero Destroyer is going to be a quicker play than Interdimensional Facebot, but the Facebot is actually one of my all-time favorite cards. So when a game can drag out into turn 8, turn 9, turn 10, and beyond, it literally is a lifesaver. In a lot of ways. So since I'm playing Verore in this deck Purity, I do have a number of tricks up my sleeve that will allow me to drag out the turn. So I'm thinking that I should go with Interdimensional Facebot. So it's a bit slow, so you'd be able to play it on turn 8, and then you won't be able to activate its ability on the turn 9. So yeah, Facebot or Aerial Destroyer. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, I like Facebot, but Aerial Destroyer is probably going to be more useful, because it's got a much lower cost and good power to cost ratio. So let's go with the Aerial Destroyer. Okay, now we're into the next set of draft choices. Choice number 11, Beast of Burden, Demon Hunter, Verore Deck Worshipper, and give him a jetpack. So as I mentioned before, Verore Deck Worshipper, a little bit slow unless she's in command, and that you've got, a bunch of AoE attack cards at your disposal. In draft, she's really most of the time pretty marginal unless you can get the right deck set up. So, as you can see, we're only 11 cards into the draw, but Mass Deaths and Overcharged Storms are really hard to get in draft. And with our Purity, actually, it's, basically impossible because Mass Death basically requires 2 Purity for us. So let's skip that and go give him a jetpack. Okay, we got another Tinker. Unfortunately, Tinker and Support Drone are both in this pick, so would have loved to get them separately so I could pick both of them, but we've only got one Aether Acolyte, so we're not going too well in terms of building out Aether Acolyte Tinker side combo, but let's hope more Aether Acolytes and more Tinkers show up later in the game. So let's go with the Tinker. Okay, choice 13, we can do Spec Op or Artificial Swarmer. Let's roll them out. Neither of them are particularly strong cards. Adaptive Brute, basically when you play it, you can overcharge it once. And if you do, it does 6 damage to your opponent's fortress. So basically, 6 free damage if you overcharge this card. Power to cost ratio wise, it's okay. It's not great. It's not bad. And then the other pick is Treasure Hunter. And Treasure Hunter is something I play pretty often. Artificial card, so it'll benefit from a Lucre play. And it also lets you draw 2 cards if you overcharge one. So for example, if you got a bad draw in your hand and you got a card that you're not gonna need or use in the game, then you can use it to overcharge Treasure Hunter and draw 2 new cards. So I'm going to go with Treasure Hunter. Okay, this choice, pardon me, is pretty limited. I can do Tormented Thrall or Recycle. Denial of Flight is marginal at best, pretty much. So it's kind of like the entire Denial series of cards, whereby you can remove a card from your opponent's hand before they can be played. But you know, Denial of Flight can only remove flying cards, and you know, I've got quite a few mobs, quite a few cards that have flying already. So if I need to mount a flying defensive, I've got that flexibility already. So really, it's between Tormented Thrall and Recycle. So Tormented Thrall would be good if I had a lightning bolt in hand or something else that can easily target and kill my own card, but you know, I don't just yet. Recycle, I'm thinking what would be good for it to combo with. You know, Recycle is kind of a useful card sometimes, but you know, Riftline games typically don't last long enough for Recycle to become useful anyway. So let's go with Tormented Thrall. I might be able to find a lightning bolt later on that I can use on him. If not, he goes into the overcharge pool. Okay, so 15th choice, we got Mechanize. I can actually turn a non-artificial character into an artificial character and also give it +2/+2 in the process. Great to use when you've got a Tinkerer in command, and you know, a Genesis combo Purity deck. But most of the stuff I have in hand, except for Aether Acolyte, most of the characters I have are artificial anyway, so utility of this card then becomes marginal. And I don't have a Tinkerer in command, so you know, Luca will combine with it as well, but you know, it's a once-off. Zombie Gone is great if you're fighting sleepers, but otherwise it's fodder, it's useless. Contain Parallel Rift is actually can be really great when you're playing a Verore deck. And basically every turn it makes you recycle all of your cards back into the back of the deck and draw new cards out of the deck as well. So it's really a way to quickly cycle through your deck and play the right cards at the right time. The only downside is if you don't have enough resources to play a particular card in a round, it'll disappear the next round because Contained Parallel Rift will cycle it back in the back of your hand. And the other choice is Support Drone. So Support Drone is always good. If you look at my power curve now, it's not too bad, but we're probably still a bit light on 1-drops. So let's pick Support Drone. So I'm sure that there'll be other veteran players that may disagree with my choice on this round. But hey, it's my video, it's my choice. Okay, 16, Acolyte of the Crypt, Vandalize, Denial of Flight, Verore Channeler. Vandalize basically destroys an artifact, that's it. At a cost of 6, it's very expensive, but you know, it costs more because it's factionless, can be used in any deck. So, Denial of Flight, as I mentioned before, pretty marginal, so it's toss up between Verore Channeler and Acolyte of the Crypt. So Acolyte of the Crypt, gains +1/+1 for each character in the opponent's graveyard. So it's a card that gets more powerful the more opponents you put into the grave. So can be great, but not as versatile as Verore Channeler. So Verore Channeler, as I mentioned before, +5/+2 to any character it targets in play as long as she stays alive. I'm going to go with her. Okay, next pick, we got a Firebolt, Genesis Construct, another Battlefield Scavenger, or Neophyte Summoner. Neophyte Summoner is actually pretty good, so you can play it very early at a cost of 2. overcharge it once and it creates a 6/6 flying demon character. I can also pick the Firebolt, because if I can get that into play with my Tormented Thrall, it'll turn my Thrall into a 10/10 card really earlier on. So Firebolt's always high utility anyway, because you can use it to take out a lot of small drops in your opponent's hand, especially stuff that hides in the support zone. So basically it deals 4 damage to any target character, whether they're in the command zone, support zone, or any other zone in play. So let's go with the Firebolt. Okay, choice number 18, cleans the land. It destroys a target location. Very low cost, but in riff runs, again, locations don't pop up that often, so it becomes a niche scenario. Support drone, as I mentioned before, great choice. Weaponize, I've never really used this card before. It basically turns an artifact into an 8/8 artificial character as well. I'd say it's pretty marginal in riff runs. I don't see any of the top riff players play Weaponize at all. Overloaded Soldier is actually a very good card, because even though it looks very expensive at 3 costs for a full 4 card, you can spend 2 resources at any point in time to give it a +2/+2 bump. So for example, if you get to a turn where you have no cards to play, you can literally burn all your resources on buffing up the Overloaded Soldier. It can become very big very fast, especially in late game. But for the sake of keeping in line with our command zone and having lots of small drops that are artificial, I'm going to go with Support Drone again. 19. Okay, Symbiote Prototype. This is a decent card, but it's not a card that I play that often. So it's very singular. It's a 4 cost for a 10/10 drop, so it's a decent card to play by itself. And it also gains an Untouchable if you have an artifact in play as well. I don't believe I've gotten any artifacts yet. Or War Machine, I do have one. But given it Untouchable doesn't actually give us that much in the deck that we're playing. Altar of Binding is a utility card. So, for example, if your opponent has a really big mob, and good combos with this as well, right? So, for example, if I wanted to move something that my opponent has into assault or defense zone and keep it there, right, I could combo Word of Command with Altar of Binding. If I wanted to keep an opponent's card inside of their support zone as well, I could play Altar of Binding on it, and it basically can't move out of support zone. So it's a pretty versatile card, especially when comboed with Word of Command. You can basically put any of your opponent's cards into basically any zone you want, either Word of Command combo with and move it into assault with defense zone, or just directly play Altar of Binding on a character that is in support zone. The other choice is Verore Brute. We've already talked about him before. And another one is Overclock. So Overclock is another very powerful card. It's situational, but it's powerful. But if you target an artificial character you control with it, it doubles that character's power and health. But at the end of that turn, character dies, right? He's sacrificed. So it's kind of like the Siphoner. It can create a one-shot winner card. I'm gonna go with Altar of Binding, for some combo flexibility. Okay, number 20. We've got Overclock again. Low orbit Aeon Cannon. Good card, a bit slow, so you can only play it with 5 resources. And then if you pay 3, it deals 6 damage to all the characters your opponent controls on the battlefield. You do have to time it right though, because every time you use Low Orbit Ion Cannon, it exhausts for 2 turns. So, when you play it, when you put it into play, a lot of the top players will start predicting when you're going to use it, and they'll pull a lot of their characters back when they anticipate you're going to fire it off, because once you fire it off, you can't do it again for another 2 turns. The other card is Acolyte of the Altar. So Acolyte of the Altar is actually a really, really high function card. So what you can do is you can exhaust Acolyte of the Altar, sacrifice a character that you have in play, and then that basically reduces the cost of the next ability card you use this turn by 2. So why she is interesting to me is because I have Rita, Shadow Mistress, right? Rita Shadow Mistress will be spinning off 2/2 Rita's cards every turn if I use her, and then I can combo those cards with Acolyte of the Altar and kind of basically get a low cost ability card off in a turn. So it's a choice between Low Orbit Ion Cannon and Acolyte of the Altar. So I think Low Orbit Ion Cannon can be effective in late game if played well, and assuming your opponent doesn't dodge. But Acolyte of the Altar is highly functional at any point in time, so I'm going to go with her. So if I was playing a deck that did not generate a lot of tokens for free, Acolyte would probably not be as good a choice, because I need a stream of drops to feed it with. This draft choice is interesting. So Joan and Genesis are both functional, especially with Luca. Summoner and Tinker, right, is good for our Tinker side deck, but with only one Aether Acolyte in hand right now, I'm not sure how effective we're going to be with trying to build a Tinker side combo. Summoner of the Deep is actually my top choice here, because it combos extremely well with Rita Shadow Mistress. So every turn I can actually pay 2 and sacrifice a character to create a 4/4 demon with flying in the support zone. This is a top combo for Verore Deck players, Rita and Summoner of the Deep. So basically, Rita creates a Rita's card, and then Summoner of the Deep can turn that Rita's card into a 4/4 flying demon every turn. So I'm going to go with him, her, whatever. Okay, next pick, Mechanized Neophyte Summoner, Elitist Discovery, Verore Magic Siphoner. Elitist Discovery basically lets you just pull any artifact card in your deck and then place it into your hand. So, the only artifact we've got now is a War Machine. So, the cost of playing that to get a War Machine in the hand is higher than the cost of the War Machine itself. Verore Magic Summoner, good card. Neophyte Summoner, good card as well. Basically, very fast card. I can sacrifice a character. I can overcharge it once, and it creates a 6/6 flying demon character. After that, it's pretty much useless. You can actually use it for cannon fodder. So I'm gonna go with a Magic Siphoner. I think, yes, Magic Siphoner, because Magic Siphoner can be comboed with Tinker as well. So for example, I put Magic Siphoner into play and have it in the assault zone, I can very quickly burn off a couple of Tinkers and increase its damage by +8 with each ability played. So let's go with that. Okay, next set of choices: Mechanized Zombie Gun, Anti-Air Missile, or Firebolt. Let's pick another Firebolt. So it's always good to have a couple of Firebolts in your hand. As I mentioned, very functional card. Okay, next choice, we can either go with Drone, give him a jetpack, Adaptive Brute, or Unending Drone. Unending Drones are really hard to play in riff runs because, you know, they really need to have volume. So if you're constructing a deck targeting Unending Drone, then you have lots of them in your deck, basically. They do combo well with Lucre. They combo fantastically, especially when you got lots of Unending Drones in play. And basically, if you have enough of them in your deck, they are unending because every time you kill one, right, you put another one into play and it resurrects an Unending Drone. But you know, we're over halfway through our draft already, and this is the first Unending Drone that's popped up, so unlikely we're going to be able to get enough Unending Drones in hand for them to be effective. And you know, in terms of power to cost, singularly as a card, they're awful, right? Cost a 2 for a 2/2. So let's go with either a give him a jetpack or drone. I'm going to go with a drone. Some decent picks here. Laser cannon, always good utility. You can basically use it to deal 5 damage to 3 different characters, or to do 15 damage to a single character, or any combination of the above. Cost of 5, so it's not cheap. Secluded Constructor, you know, another staple choice for any Genesis player. But in our deck right now, where we've got a lot of small things, and Secluded Constructor not being in command, a little bit more marginal. Assimilation Bot, very cost-effective card, and especially if we get it into play and it dies, it will buff all of our artificial characters by +1/+1. And Infected Drone, it looks weak, but you know, you bring it into play as soon as anyone targets it, whether you target it with something or your opponent targets it. It turns into a +7. It turns into a 7/7 character. So typically, this is great for comboing with a Tinkerer in command. But we've also got a couple of Tinkers in our hand as well. So again, can be easily comboed. I'm going to go with an Infected Drone because they're so high. You know, in terms of they're so good in terms of their power to cost ratio. Okay, next choice, Candid Head Researcher. Basically, when it comes into play, you draw 2 more cards. Airborne Scientist, a small mob with flying, but he's a human and not a artificial, so he would not benefit from a Lucre buff when I deploy Lucre. Blood Craze Initiate, great if you can time it right. So it's a very, very difficult card to time right, because when you put him into play, basically he transforms the first time a character dies. Doesn't matter if it's your character, your opponent's character, and any characters that die in that turn. Basically, Blood Craze Initiate transforms and gains Bloodthirsty. And you know, for example, if 5 characters dies this turn, it would gain Bloodthirsty 5, which is awesome. But again, very hard to time though. So, you know, if you put him in play at the wrong time and only 1 character dies, it becomes a 5/5 drop with Bloodthirsty 1, which is pretty useless. Well, not as powerful anyway. So, roll of the dice on this one. Assimilation Bot, as I mentioned before, good choice. Decent power to cost ratio. I'm going to go with Assimilation Bot. Okay, in terms of choices, I have Construction. Basically, it's a one-shot card that's like the Constructor, so I can sacrifice 1 artificial character and then take its power and health and put it to another character. Airborne Scientist, we talked about. Candid Head Researcher, we've talked about. Siphon Structure. Basically, you can use however many resources you want that you have available, and it would take that number of resources in damage from your opponent and add it to your own fortress. So it's marginally good, but you know, it's situational as well. So you know, if you manage to get your opponent down to say 5 health, right? Playing this card would basically good game him. So I'm gonna go with I think I'm gonna go with Candid. So playing her basically helps me get another 2 cards drawn into hand and help me cycle through cards a little bit quicker. Okay, pick 28. We missed out on the low orbit Eon Cannon before because we chose something else. So let's go and pick that up. Genetic splicing. Not that useful at all during riff runs. So, I could be wrong, but I've actually never found a good use for it during riff runs in most cases. So I'm going to go with the low orbit Eon Cannon. 29. Assassinate once again. Calmando. Wasted time unless you can get lots of them, which is hard to do in Rift. Symbiote Prototype, we talked about him before, and Research. Purely play this card, draw another 2 cards. So I'm going to take that Assassinate, basically keep it in my pocket. I usually don't play it, but sometimes there are situations whereby your opponent has that one really annoying char in play. Could be a Zuzer or something like that you really want to take out, even though it's going to cost you, a reduction in max resources by 2 points. Okay, some decent choices here. So a couple of highly functional utility cards like Heat Wave, deal 2 damage to all enemy characters, and Desolation, deal 5 damage to all characters in your opponent's support zone. Desolation, you have to time it right, but it can be extremely powerful. Heat Wave is useful, but at 2 damage only. You really need to. It's situational unless you can combo it with other area damage cards. Deflect is also useful, but I like playing offensive instead of defensive. And then Mechanism, which basically is an artifact that you put into your support zone, and it will give +1/+1 to all the characters on any character on its immediate left and immediate right. So basically it's a recurring +1/+1 buff for up to 2 characters in your support zone every turn once it's deployed. I think I'm going to go with Desolation. So it's either Desolation or Heat Wave. So I think I'm going to go with Desolation. Heat Wave is fantastic if you can get multiple of them and kind of play either multiple of them or combo them with another area damage card. Okay, I'm probably talking a little bit too much, so this draft pick process is kind of like dragged on for a long time, but I wanted to give as much commentary as possible in terms of, why I'm making the card choices I'm making, especially for the benefit of players that are newer to the drafting game mode. So 4 choices here. I'm just going to, cut the preamble short and go with Kinetically Overloaded Drone. Right? 1-drop artificial that can benefit from Looper combo. Unending Drone again, give him a jetpack. Master of Demons, basically if I had a lot of demon cards in the deck, it becomes a very useful card because it gains +3 for each deployed demon you control. I don't have many demons, so I'm going to skip over her. Let's go with another Verore Magic Siphoner. Okay, so Cannon Fire, Secluded Constructor, or Zombie Gone. I don't have too many direct damage cards right now, so I think I skipped on the Laser Cannon before. So let's go with a Cannon Fire. Okay, another Cannon Fire up for choice, a Vandalize, Death Worship, or a Spec Up. Let's take another Cannon Fire. So Cannon Fire does a 4 damage to up to 2 characters, or 8 damage to 1 character. That's on the battlefield. Okay, I can choose another Tormented Thrall here or another Summoner of the Deep. I'm actually going to go with another Summoner. Make sure that I can, increase the chance that I can get a Summoner in hand to get that combo going with my Reader and Mistress of Shadows. Okay, a couple of good choices here. Lightning Bolt, always versatile, especially against artificial characters when it does double damage, so 8 instead of 4. And Blackbine Witch, also extremely useful card. Basically, any character that kills Blackbine Witch will die as well. So I'm gonna either go with Lightning Bolt or Blackbine Witch. Let me see. It's not as good as Parasite, if you have a sleeper deck, but it's still a very strong card. Let's go with Lightning Blast. So again, I think some veteran players will disagree with my choice of cards there, but it's a toss-up between Lightning Bolt and Blackbine Witch. So I like to play aggressive decks. Kinetically Overloaded Drone would be my first pick. Mechanics Overseer, decent card, gives +1/+1 to all artificial cards when it's in play. I think I want a lot more small drop artificials, so that when I play Lucre, I get the maximum bang for the buck. Okay. Cannon Head Researcher again. Research. Bad Bot. If I pick that Constructor, I'd probably pick Bad Bot. No use crying over spilt milk. Another Unmanned Aerial Destroyer. Let's go with him. You don't want that many Researchers in hand because, otherwise you fill your entire hand up with Researchers and you're just flipping through cards and getting more Researchers. Okay, so the best choice from this pick would be Controlled Temporal Anomaly.
Okay, folks, it's Crestball from the Infinity Wars team again, taking that 3F4 deck for another run. This is probably going to be the last.
Pause that and come back. So Controlled Temporal Anomaly combos extremely well with Lucre. So what I can do is play Lucre, right? Get the buff for all of my artificial characters in play, and then I can control Temporal Anomaly Lucre again, right? Which kind of takes him out of play for that turn and brings him back to play at the end of the turn. And the buff that he provides kicks off again. So great card to combo with Lucre. I'm going to go with that. Number 40, another Controlled Temporal Anomaly. Very tempting. So let's look at some of the other choices though. Orion, Master Engineer, right? Exhaust, pay 7, shuffle target artificial character card you control into your deck. Recruit the artificial character closest to the top of the deck. I've never found a functional use for this card ever. Maybe I'm missing something, but a very expensive card to play, not that useful. A Leader Immortal Searcher basically allows you to draw another card for a cost of 3. Can be played once per turn because she exhausts. Verore Brute we've talked about. I'm going to go with another Controlled Temporal Anomaly. Okay, that ends our very, very long draft pick commentary. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will be taking this deck for a run as well and keeping you guys updated on how it goes. Thank you.